The gavel fell with a heavy, definitive crack of splitting timber, but it wasn't a sentence that was finalized in Courtroom 4B. It was the meticulously crafted illusion of the Honorable Judge Eleanor Vance. "This court is adjourned." Eleanor's voice rang out, steady and authoritative, betraying absolutely nothing of the chaotic drumbeat hammering against her ribs. She stood, the heavy black silk of her robes swirling around her, and didn't look back as she descended the steps toward her private chambers. She didn't dare look back. If she did, her eyes would inevitably seek out Imogen Hayes, the defense attorney who had spent the last 3 weeks turning Eleanor's courtroom into her own personal stage and Eleanor's strictly guarded heart into a battleground. Eleanor pushed through the heavy oak doors of her chambers, letting them click shut behind her. The sudden quiet of the room, insulated from the murmurs of the gallery and the shuffling of papers, was deafening. Outside the tall, arched windows, London was weeping a steady, gray drizzle, the raindrops tracing erratic paths down the glass. Eleanor unclasped the collar of her robe, letting it slip from her shoulders to drape over the back of her leather chair. She pressed her fingertips to her temples, closing her eyes. For 10 years on the bench, Eleanor had been the epitome of impartiality. She was the ice queen of the circuit, unshakable, sharp, and entirely focused on the law. Then Imogen Hayes had walked in. Imogen, with her sharp American accent softening the edges of British legal jargon. Imogen, who wore tailored emerald green suits that defied the drab navy and black of the barrister crowd. Imogen, whose brilliant, calculating mind was matched only by the devastating, fleeting smirks she shot toward the bench when she knew she had cornered the opposing counsel, Beatrice. A sharp knock at the chamber door shattered the silence. Eleanor straightened instinctively, smoothing her blouse. "Come in." The door opened, and the air in the room instantly felt thinner. It was Imogen. She had shed her own blazer, standing in a crisp white button-down, her sleeves rolled up to her forearms. She held a thick manila folder, but her posture was anything but professional. She leaned against the heavy doorframe, closing the door softly behind her with a definitive click. "Counselor," Eleanor said, her voice dropping an octave, striving for the cool detachment she had maintained for weeks. "The session is over. If you have motions to file, Penelope is at the clerk's desk." Imogen didn't move toward the desk. Instead, she took a slow, deliberate step into the center of the room. "I don't have a motion, Your Honor." "Then what do you have, Imogen?" Eleanor asked, the use of her first name slipping out before she could catch it. A slow, dangerous smile curved Imogen's lips. A realization. She tossed the folder onto a nearby armchair. "You ended the session rather abruptly today." Beatrice hadn't even finished her grandstanding. Beatrice was speaking in circles, and the jury was falling asleep. It was time to end it. Was it? Imogen took another step closer. The scent of her, something bright like bergamot mixed with the crisp scent of rain, invaded Eleanor's personal space. "Or were you just tired of looking at me?" Eleanor's breath hitched. She placed her hands flat on the mahogany expanse of her desk, anchoring herself. "I am the presiding judge. You are defense attorney in my courtroom. I look at you strictly to ensure the proceedings are lawful." "Liar," Imogen whispered. The word hung in the air, audacious and entirely accurate. "Excuse me?" Eleanor bristled, though there was no real heat behind it. "You heard me, Eleanor." Imogen stopped right at the edge of the desk. The space between them was measured in mere inches now. "I've spent 3 weeks reading a jury of 12. Do you honestly think I haven't been reading you?" Eleanor held her gaze. Imogen's eyes were a striking, piercing hazel, currently dark with an intensity that had nothing to do with the law. "I saw the way your jaw clenched when I cross-examined the lead witness," Imogen continued, her voice a low, mesmerizing murmur. "I saw the way your eyes lingered on my hands when I was at the podium. And I saw the way you practically fled the bench just now. You are crossing a line, Miss Hayes. A very severe professional line. The session is over," Imogen reminded her softly. "You ended it. The gavel fell. Court is adjourned. There is no judge and attorney in this room right now. There is just Eleanor and Imogen." Eleanor felt the last vestiges of her control slipping away, melting under the heat of Imogen's proximity. The truth was, she had spent the entire trial agonizing over the curve of Imogen's neck, the fierce, intelligent fire in her arguments, and the sheer, magnetic pull she exerted simply by existing in the same room. "If this goes poorly," Eleanor murmured, her voice finally losing its judicial edge, "it would be a scandal. I am an excellent defense attorney. Imogen replied, reaching across the polished mahogany. Her fingertips lightly brushed the back of Eleanor's hand. A jolt of electricity shot up Eleanor's arm. I can argue our way out of anything. Eleanor looked down at their hands. Imogen's skin was warm, her touch gentle but insistent. Slowly, deliberately, Eleanor turned her hand over, intertwining her fingers with Imogen's. You're terribly arrogant, Eleanor whispered. I prefer the term confident. Imogen tugged gently, silently urging Eleanor to step around the fortress of her desk. Eleanor yielded. She walked around the heavy oak furniture, stepping fully into Imogen's space. Without the desk between them, the height difference was apparent. Eleanor had to tilt her chin up slightly to meet Imogen's gaze. Tell me to leave, Eleanor, Imogen said, her bravado softening into something vulnerable and entirely sincere. Tell me I misread the signals. Tell me to go back to my hotel, and I will walk out that door, and tomorrow we will go back to being strangers in a courtroom. Eleanor searched the hazel eyes looking down at her. She saw the risk Imogen was taking, the immense, terrifying leap of faith. To say the word would be to retreat back into the safe, cold, lonely world she had inhabited for a decade. I can't, Eleanor breathed. I can't tell you to leave. Imogen exhaled a shaky breath, a sound of profound relief. Thank God. Imogen's free hand came up to cup Eleanor's jaw. Her thumb gently traced the high sweep of Eleanor's cheekbone. Eleanor leaned into the touch, her eyes fluttering shut as a wave of intense, long-denied longing washed over her. When their lips met, it wasn't tentative. It was a collision of 3 weeks of suppressed tension, stolen glances, and silent yearning. Imogen's mouth was warm and demanding, and Eleanor answered with a fierce hunger that surprised them both. Eleanor's hands found the lapels of Imogen's shirt, pulling her flush against her. The kiss deepened, tasting of rain and adrenaline. Imogen backed Eleanor slowly until her shoulders hit the edge of the mahogany desk. Papers scattered, a pen rolled onto the carpet, but neither woman cared. Imogen broke the kiss just enough for them to catch their breath, resting her forehead against Eleanor's. Both of them were breathing heavily, the silence of the chambers replaced by the ragged sound of their inhales. You have no idea, Imogen murmured against Eleanor's lips, how many times I wanted to object during this trial just so you would look at me. A soft, genuine laugh escaped Eleanor, a sound she hadn't heard from herself in years. If you had objected one more time today, I might have held you in contempt. Would you have locked me up? Imogen teased, her hands sliding down to rest on Eleanor's waist. I might have. Eleanor reached up, threading her fingers through Imogen's dark, neatly styled hair, ruining the perfect waves. I might have kept you here in chambers until you learned some respect for the bench. I have the utmost respect for the bench, Imogen smiled, leaning in to press a soft kiss to the corner of Eleanor's mouth. It's the woman sitting on it that drives me entirely out of my mind. The afternoon faded into evening, the gray light outside dimming to a deep, rainy dusk. The heavy oak doors remained locked. Inside the hushed sanctuary of the judge's chambers, the rigid lines of the law dissolved, replaced by the soft, urgent language of discovery. They talked as the shadows lengthened. They traded stories of their pasts, Imogen's fierce climb through the competitive American legal system, Eleanor's quiet, disciplined descent in London. They found shared frustrations, shared passions, and a terrifying, beautiful intellectual symmetry. When they finally emerged from the courthouse hours later, the building was deserted. The storm had passed, leaving the London streets slick and glittering under the amber glow of the streetlights. They stood under the grand stone archway of the entrance. Imogen had her umbrella open, the dark fabric shielding them from the lingering mist. The jury comes back tomorrow, Imogen said softly, the reality of the morning creeping in. They do, Eleanor agreed. She adjusted the collar of her trench coat, feeling a strange sense of melancholy at the thought of returning to their designated roles. Imogen shifted the umbrella, wrapping her free arm around Eleanor's waist and pulling her close under the canopy. It's going to be absolute torture standing at that podium tomorrow, pretending I don't know what you taste like. Eleanor smiled, a secret, radiant expression that she reserved entirely for the woman beside her. You are a professional, Miss Hayes. I expect you to maintain decorum. I'll try, Your Honor. Imogen kissed her again, lingering and sweet beneath the glow of the city lights. But I make no promises. As Eleanor watched Imogen walk away, her silhouette disappearing into the misty London night, she knew the title of her life had irrevocably changed. She had struck the gavel. She had ended the session. And as she touched her fingers to her still tingling lips, she knew, with absolute, terrifying certainty, that nothing was ever going to be the same again.